So the lady's saying that yesterday I spoke about how making love brings up the past in us. Well, that's what it's supposed to do. If we're all getting excited in that, it'll bring up our exciting past, and we'll get more excited, and all things will go on. But in right lovemaking between a man and woman, where they love one another, and they're willing to find something in this love, every sexual disappointment in your life, every lover you've ever had, is still there emotionally in your body. It doesn't just go away. It lies down there, and it's called the part of yourself, your emotional content down there. Now love, emotion is not love, but love stirs the emotions of yesterday, because emotions are twisted pieces of love. When you're loved, you don't get emotional. When you're not loved and you're abused or disappointed or just sexually excited instead of being loved, that creates an emotion there. And that's a twisted bit of love, because we're all love, and we should be able to make love without any complications or disappointments in it. But when it gets disappointed, the love that we are gets a twist in it, a separation, as it were. Instead of a union, which love does, emotion breaks off and gets separation and feels unloved. It feels abused. It feels left behind, not really loved. It feels used or disappointed, and that lies there. Now, emotions want to be loved, naturally, because they're a broken off piece of love that has been disappointed, and like a child down there, and there are many children in us crying, like the lady who spoke yesterday about abuse. There would be a child in her, if it happened in her childhood or wherever it happened, crying in her, crying right down deep inside of her, and she would feel this sadness and this awful sadness in her from time to time, because the child in her is crying, because it was abused and unhappy. The love that we make is supposed to bring up this emotion, because it will attract the emotion, because the emotion wants to be loved. So it wants to come up and join in the love that's being made now, to have a sense of union. But it doesn't do that. It comes up and reveals itself to be not love, and can cut off the love that we're making now, because it's a sort of a reincarnation. As I said, you can see people, if you stir the past in them, their faces will change psychically, and they will take on another image. And even of when they were a teenager or a girl, the dreadful pain can appear in the face psychically, because this is all psychic. And so it's not very far from our understanding that this emotion of the past comes up, and we actually relive the horror or the disappointment or the feeling of being used. We live it in the midst of the love we're making now. That's how powerful it is. And of course, when emotion which is not love comes into love, the love disappears, and we are unable to join in the love.
Barry, so when that happens, because that has been happening to me recently, what do I do?
You have to endeavour to just see that this is an old emotion putting itself on the present. That means the past is putting itself on the present. And that's not holy, is it? The present is now, and this is the past. And you must see it as much as you can. And with the help of your partner, you must be able to say it to him. I've got this thing, it's only in my past. It's something out of my past come up and cut me off. It's an emotion, and I've got this very depressing or awful feeling in me, or disappointment. I don't want to make love, for instance. That's it, in the past, coming into where you're making love, and it doesn't want to make love, whereas you're making love. It's Crazy, but that's how it works in all of us. Until you can look at it often enough, and the more that your intelligent gaze is on it, the more it can't stand intelligence. Emotion, you'll notice, hides in the dark. It hides in not being revealed, because the personality is supposed to hide our disappointments, our miserable life and wretchedness and all that. We get on a nice personality and we fool everyone, we think. And so emotion, you'll notice, hides in the dark. But when you let the light in, and there's no room for emotion, somehow it just goes. So it is good for you to look at these things and see them, because you're woman, you're love. You have the power of love in you. And you've had to pass through your experience like all of us had to. And that's what this world's about, because the world was built by man's mind. You know, it wasn't... woman is, you've heard me say, woman is 100% love and man is 90% with something to do. Now, man did not consult woman in his making of this world. He used a woman, he made her have children to look after his farms or whatever it was. He used her, but he forgot about love. And so his world had no woman in it, no love of woman, only his mind or his notion of how things should be. And that was a loveless direction that he went in, because he did not truly love woman as I'm talking about it. All these generations away from when the world was made by man. So he made it without love. And so what do you see when you truly look at this world? You see a world without love in it. A world of sex, where all the movies, magazines, you can't even get a magazine unless it tries to get some sex on the front page. You can't go to a movie unless they're climbing into each other's mouths. You can't do anything unless it's got sex in it, because that's the way it is. We made this world and now we've got to live in it, but the individual can change it. You and I can change it. But my goodness, it's got a rip-roaring start on us, hasn't it? But the beauty of it is that everybody dies. So it's all right. There's no losers, really. But please note that your past will come up in those moments, particularly in lovemaking, and cut the woman off. So often does she cut off, does the emotion come across her and she cuts off. And the man's job then is to love her through it, because when that emotion comes up, if he's loving her, he's not likely to feel like loving her. Because when she's in that mode, she's not lovable. She was in disappointment and hurt. Unless he's sexually using her, he'll pull back too, because she doesn't have the appeal for him, because this entity of the past has come into her, and this is not the woman that he loves. It's the past in her. But he has to be man enough to not be affected by that, to not be repelled by that, but to love her and say, it's all right, I love you. And sometimes if it gets to shouting or anything like that by the woman, then he has to indeed pull back and not indulge her. But that doesn't mean he doesn't go on loving her. Because these are powerful forces we're talking about. I'm sure you all know that. And woman seems most vulnerable to it. And that's what man's penis is about. If you've listened to my Making Love tapes, I'm sure I say this in there, I do. Man's penis is supposed to take the world out of woman. And the world is just what you talked about. Your past experiences with man, your disappointments, your unhappiness, the lady's abuse. The loving penis is supposed to go in there into into the vagina where all these things lie in that consciousness, and gradually through love take it out of her, so there's no more need to be concerned about that past now, because I love you now, not in the past. I love you now. And that's what it's supposed to do. And she's supposed to feel greater love and freedom as he takes it from her. But if he's just going to sex her up, then he puts in sex into her, and she knows again the disappointment or the unhappiness or something underneath that's just not fulfilled. That's what sex does to us.